Okay. I've got a full agenda for us today, so we're at 4:30. I'm going to go ahead and get started with our study abroad information session. Thank you all for joining me today. We've got a really packed room. I love to see it. I'm glad you all are here, all very interested in supporting your students on study abroad. We are recording this. I will have a recording available tomorrow. We'll get it posted up on our YouTube channel. I can share it out by email. You can find my email on the page where you got to this session. Um, but with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Oh, and I will say, if you need to leave early, yes, we'll have the recording. Please do. Um, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat box during the presentation. I will try and answer them out loud as they come in. If I miss it, I will get to it at the end. I will leave time. I've left time today for question and answers at the end of the session. Um, but quickly, my name is Jacob. I work here in the study abroad office. I am our study abroad recruiter. And I myself am coming up on 20 years ago. I did my study abroad experience in beautiful Adelaide, South Australia. And it was due to that I decided this was the kind of work that I wanted to do. And so I have been doing this since I got back from that trip. I started as a student worker in an international office, spent the first half of my career working with international students, so traveling overseas and helping them find educational opportunities here in the United States. And now the second half working with students to go overseas and have their own life-changing experiences. Um, very excited to be talking with you all about study abroad and what it will look like for your students. Um, today's session, I'm going to pack a lot in. I want to talk to everybody at whatever point that you're at. So I'm going to be starting with the basics, the 101 of study abroad, what that looks like. And I'll be going all the way to how to help your student come back from study abroad. So hopefully I'm able to touch a little bit on where everybody is at in this journey. But in an hour, I couldn't possibly share everything I know or everything that we have here. So really would encourage you to have your student come chat with us. I'll provide resources about how to do that. But the big things we're going to talk about today are what study abroad is, the always the big question, right? Financial aid, money, scholarships, that kind of thing. I'll preview a little bit of what goes into preparing your students once they're accepted into their programs to go overseas, so they're pre-departure, and a little bit about health and safety, because I know this is always a big topic for this particular audience. And then I've got some travel advice and tips from our team here at the Study Abroad office that we share with your students that I wanted to share with you all as well. My goal really is to make you informed because I remember when I was a student that I was remiss in sharing everything with my parents, and they were very eager and active in my educational pursuits. But I imagine if you asked them, they would say that I was a little lacking in my own communication. And so today, what I hope to do is fill in any gaps that you may have in your knowledge and understanding of what study abroad is at whatever point you and your students are at in this journey. But quickly, I kind of want to talk about what study abroad is and why, right? Why we would recommend students do study abroad, what the benefit here is. Um, there is a basic definition of what study abroad is. The idea here is that you are going overseas to earn credit towards your degree. We consider this at the University of Arizona to be a high impact practice. Okay. This is something that is fitting into their time here, into their degree plan, but really propelling them forward in their academics, in their personal growth, in their professional growth. And so we're really here to help them find the best opportunity to combine what I see as both sides of the study abroad coin, right? There is the study part that is the most important, is the paramount reason that we are here. It is what my team of peer advisors, is what the team here at the study abroad office are here to help with. It's what the everybody here on campus is here to help with. But we also know that the being abroad part, that other side of the coin, is pretty much why students come to study abroad. And so we want to make sure that they have a very well-rounded experience where they are staying on track, they are improving academically, professionally, personally, but also getting to have this transformative and immersive experience living, studying, and operating overseas. And what it is not is a vacation, right? This is not about sitting on beaches. This is not about going out there partying. Now, we want students to have fun. We want them to really enjoy study abroad, to have a great, well-rounded experience. Um, but we're not here trying to delay graduation unnecessarily. Everything that I talk about today and everything that we do at the Study Abroad office is designed to fit this experience, whatever it may look like for your students, inside of their 4-year plan or whatever their plan is. If they're trying to graduate early, we can talk to them about that. If they're already looking at extended time to accommodate more academics, maybe dual majors or something like this, we can work with that. But what we are working towards is getting students to graduation at the time that they want to graduate. Some of the benefits, some of the why of study abroad that we personally feel and that students report back to us all the time um, are listed on the screen here. And I can tell you most students come to us, talk to me um, for that first one, right? Students are looking to explore, to kind of expand their global perspective, to expand their personal global profile. Um, and that's what we're here to help them do. We are here to help them advance academically. As I was saying, this is designed to get them to graduation on time. Um, we can explore with students how to use study abroad, maybe to graduate early or build softer senior years. That is definitely a possibility. We are here to meet their personal goals. And this is the part where I really encourage students to be thinking about what they want, because this will help us when we advise them, advise them on the right types of programs, the right types of locations. Um, and knowing what their personal goals are will really help us do this. One story that I like to share with students when I give a version of this info session to them is my own. I'm from very small town Arizona, very rural Arizona. I was able to travel a little bit before coming to university, but I really hadn't done anything like study abroad by the time I was thinking about it. And I knew it was something that uh, I was going to really love. I just already knew that. And I knew it was going to be something that turned me on to wanting to do more of it. And I was also cognizant enough to know that I didn't know everything. And one of those things I didn't know was just how to live in a big city. And so I knew I wanted to go to Australia, but I sensed that going to Sydney wasn't going to work for me personally, just what I was looking for. It's a very big global city. I think it would have felt pretty overwhelming for this little country hayseed. Um, and so I worked with my study abroad advisor to say, hey, look, this is the destination. These are the kinds of classes I need. But what I'm really struggling with is finding this location that's going to be the big city experience, but not so big that it's going to overwhelm me right out of the gate. And so that's what I mean when I talk about personal goals, kind of a considering it. And if your students don't have these established, if they're just like, I know I want to do study abroad, but I'm not really sure why or what I can get out of it, we're here to help with that as well. And then professional development. Study abroad is an amazing way to really start to build up their professional profile before graduation, and prepare them for the job market or grad school. All the data shows that study abroad gives students a leg up in all of these areas. Higher rates of graduate school admission, quicker rates of job attainment, because the skills that they're learning, intercultural competencies, communication skills, things like this, are all things that employers know students get on study abroad. And the other nice thing is it gives them this worldly experience that they can draw upon as they start to write admission letters or essays for grad school, or cover letters, things like this, or they're in interviews. This is all experience that they can draw upon to really help get into their profession after graduation. So that's a little bit of the what and the why when it comes to doing study abroad. Um, this is the journey in a snapshot. I wanted to preview this for you all so you kind of understand the different points at which we are helping students. And really just to show that this is everything that we do here in the Study Abroad office and here at the University of Arizona. So Study Abroad is fully wrapped around. There is nothing in our catalog that is about just sending a student out there and say, good luck, we'll see you when you get back. Everything here is fully supported, top to bottom, start to finish. And we are here to help them move through these stages in their journey, including up to being here when they get back, and help them springboard their experience into the next thing, or just to process a little bit. At the end of this session today, I'm going to talk a little bit about culture shock and then reverse culture shock. And that's where you all are going to come in and be huge supporters of your students. So hopefully your student has some interest in study abroad. That's kind of the initial phase, is just learning about it, that it's an opportunity. It does require research. Study abroad is not a last minute endeavor. This is not something you can show up half a semester before the trip is going and say, I want on, can I go? We really are encouraging students to be planning almost a year out, at least a year out. And you start to apply about a semester or a semester and a half before you're going to go. Through that application process, it's a very straightforward one here at the University of Arizona. And most applications can be done by the students, I would say, within an hour or two. There's really not that much involved in it. And I'll get to the eligibility requirements and why it is that that makes the application process streamlined. But there is a lot of administrative touch points when it comes to this. So not only are they going to be applying with us, there's probably a second application for their host university, to get their information. Usually that's a formality, but it helps those universities, prepare their courses, get them enrolled, prepare any documentation the student will need for visas, things like this. If they're going for a long-term program, anything over 90 days, generally speaking, they're probably gonna have to fill out a visa application. And so there is a bit of paperwork in their future when it comes to doing study abroad. But we are here to help with that. Every student is assigned a study abroad advisor, or we call them study abroad coordinators, to help them through this application and then the pre-departure process. We do prepare students before they go overseas. I've got some slides later on to kind of show you some of the things we talk about and what we cover at that point. And then what everybody wants to get to is the being abroad part. And like I said, this is fully supported. So when your students arrive overseas, whether they're traveling on their own or traveling with one of our faculty members, they are going to know what their resources are on the ground, who their points of contact are. What I like to say when I'm talking to students is, before you ever get on an airplane, you know where you're going, what school you're studying at, who your contacts are, the classes you're taking, where you're going to be laying your head when you get there. And all of this is known well before they're setting out on their journey. And there's a lot that goes into being abroad, but there's a lot of resources both here with our team, our global health and safety team, our study abroad team, and then the counterparts to those at our partner schools. And so we are here for them all the way to the point of return when they get back. They will, they will have had an amazing time. They will have had a grand experience. Maybe they want to look for something new to do, another study abroad journey. Will help with that. And then also help them look to, maybe share their experiences with other students. So, yeah, great question here about when the application opens for spring. I will touch on that later on, but just to say it out loud real quick, spring 2026 applications will open July 1st. So quickly, Study Abroad 101, what is it? Let's start with the eligibility. Students need to be at least 18 years of age. We look for students to have had at least 1 year of college completed. That's generally calculated on having 30 credits. They need to have at least a 2.5 GPA. There will be some programs in our catalog that might have a higher requirement. I know it's pretty common for our programs in Japan to have a 3.0, but it will say that on any program page that we have. And then not have any registration holds or disciplinary violation sanctions going on. So that makes eligibility to study abroad actually pretty straightforward. And this is why our application process is also very straightforward. Um, Language, we get this question a lot when talking to students around campus. Every program is taught in English, even in the non-English speaking world. Out of our top 5 programs, I would say, at least 3 of them, if not more of them, are in the non-English speaking world. But the classes that your students will be taking will be taught in English. Now, the exception being, of course, a language learning program. If they want to go on our summer program to Spain with the Spanish department to work on their Spanish major or minor courses, then, those kinds of classes are going to be taught in that language. And then also there are very few of them, but we do have a couple of programs where students can combine both, academic classes taught in English and then maybe some language learning as well. But generally speaking, when I advise students about, kind of choosing between these two opportunities to really focus on one or the other, because if you're going to do study abroad for language learning, I feel like focusing on that and really doing that full immersion um, is going to really propel them with their language ability and just let them have a much better experience than juggling both, courses in English and then, language courses. That could be a lot in addition to everything else that we know students want to be doing when they're on study abroad. Uh, the costs, and I'm going to talk a lot more about costs and financial aid and scholarship stuff, but just to get this out up front, when they do our programs, we're charging them the same tuition that they pay at the U of A. Okay, they are never double billed for tuition, um, and there's some variations in what this looks like depending on the program, but and I'll get into that. But the one thing to know right now is that because they're paying U of A tuition, any financial aid or merit aid that they already get is going to more than likely still apply um, when they go. So if your student's receiving a scholarship to study at the U of A, then that will, uh, if it's eligible to use on study abroad, then it'll just automatically disperse the same as it always does. And then when it comes to our programs, we've got a really extensive catalog of programs, over 80 programs in about 30 countries. Everything from 1 week, we've got a pair of spring break programs that go out just for the week, to up to 1 year. If students are feeling ambitious and adventurous, they can combine 2 semesters into a single location, or they could do multiple opportunities throughout their time. That is definitely a possibility. Something that I recommend for students, for example, that are in our any of our business majors is, maybe do a traditional semester study abroad where you're taking classes and then consider doing a global internship over a summer. So then they're getting the best of everything. They're getting the study abroad experience, they're getting the academic piece, but then they're also getting that work experience and starting to build up that resume. So those are kind of some of the basics of what study abroad is. As students start their journey, these are some of the questions that they're going to come across. And these are the questions that we will help them answer. And I'll kind of dive a little bit more into some of these here. But there are a lot of people here at U of A who can help your student figure out what study abroad is going to look like for them. And we have a really great advising calendar page on our website. I'm going to put the link in the chat there, where students can see our drop-in hours. They can find the link to book an appointment with us to start to talk about study abroad. And when I say us, I mean our study abroad peer advisors. So that's a team of students who have gone overseas that work for me. We do the initial advising to help students decide which program or programs are going to work best for them. And then once they apply to their program, then we hand them off to their study abroad coordinators. But they can also be talking to their academic advisors. They could be talking to family and friends. Maybe some of you in the room have done study abroad. And if you have, feel free to drop in the chat where you went on study abroad. This is one of the great things about this job that I love is sharing travel stories and destinations. We will help them figure out what kind of classes they need, which will also help us figure out which kind of program is going to suit them best. And in the next couple slides, I'm going to break this down a little bit for you. We'll also help them figure out when and for how long they want to go for. I have fall, spring, summer academic year there. But we also have spring break programs, as I mentioned. We've got a winter break trip down to the Galapagos Islands. So a lot of options when it comes to for when and how long they go. I see some questions coming in. Study abroad, second semester next year. Yes, okay. Yes, the housing thing. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that later on. And then is fall 2025 not an option? Most of our fall applications have closed at this point. Again, this is not something that we can be put off too late. I think maybe there's one or two programs in our catalog that are still open. But for the most part, we're pretty much wrapping that up. And if not, then we will be very soon. What I wanted to talk about are the different types of experiences that students can do on study abroad. And in my mind, there are basically 5 major categories of study abroad. Our Arizona abroad locations and our exchange are probably what most people think of when they think of study abroad. These are kind of the more traditional, classic semester-long or year-long programs at a partner university overseas. We also have the faculty-led programs, our internship options, which I mentioned already, and then our research and field studies. You heard me mention the Galapagos trip. That would be an example of a field studies program. But I'm going to start right at the top. For our Arizona abroad locations, the nice thing about these programs is there's no capacity limit, so any student that applies gets in. So it's a really non-competitive process. As long as they meet the eligibility requirements, then they'll be admitted. The other great thing about the Arizona abroad locations is we have done the work here, our curriculum manager here in the study abroad office, and then our transfer credit office on campus, to pre-map and approve credits from those locations, from those schools to transfer back. So this helps with the conversation with academic advisors. And this is all listed on our catalog. Every program page you look at will have a list of classes students can take and then how it would be approved or transferred to U of A. I will say because of the non-competitive nature of the Arizona abroad locations, in terms of experience on the ground, you're going to find that there are going to be higher levels of U.S. study abroad students. Probably many other U of A students going to that location, in addition to other students from around the U.S. going on their programs. In terms of an experience, that's something where like my team of peer advisors or us as study abroad advisors can really talk to students and say, hey, what are you looking for outside of the classroom? Once we get that settled, we can talk about, what they're looking for experience-wise. And almost kind of directly opposite or opposed to that is the exchange program, where there are limited spots. And so it is a competitive application process that's based on first come, first serve. Because of those limited spots, generally you're looking at maybe a handful of students each semester, if not each year going. We do have some of those courses at those schools pre-mapped and approved, but a lot of them probably aren't. And so we can work with your student, with their academic advisor, and with the transfer office here on campus to review the native catalog there and find classes that are going to fulfill their degree requirements. With exchange programs, you're going to have much fewer U of A students, as well as just general study U.S. Study abroad students. So the experience-wise, will be in class with a lot more local students, I would say. Now, for our faculty-led, most of these happen in the summer, but not all of them. What this is basically a U of A professor teaching their class just overseas. And so, these look more like group travel, more of a travel trip, I would say, rather than a class campus experience, like you would find at our other two, the Arizona Broad and Exchange. There's no transfer credit process here because everything is just the direct credit. They could have taken that class here on campus, but they're fortunate enough to be taking it on a study abroad experience. These are really good options for first-time travelers, for people who maybe are not quite feeling a full semester program yet. They want to see if they like study abroad. This is a great way to do that. And someone looking for, again, that kind of non-classroom experience, doing something unique and different and really getting to uh, impact their studies through the travel itself. So that's one of the reasons I really love these faculty-led. Internship programs. We just launched a huge portfolio of internship programs this summer. We've got a lot of good options. Students can do a standalone in the summer. I will say because these are 4 credit experiences, they are not paid. So students are earning credit and paying tuition. So they're not going to get paid while they're overseas, which is good because then that complicates everything. It's a much longer process if it's even allowed. Um, we do have some programs in our catalog, I will say, though, where students can do an internship during their semester at study abroad. Our site in Barcelona is our #1 most popular. And this is one of the reasons, I think, is that students can do a 3 credit internship in addition to, their 9 or 12 credits of academic classes. And then the final one is research and field studies. These are primarily good for STEM students, but any student can apply to go on the programs. It's just that the academics may not, work well for their major requirements. But these are really cool programs to help students again get that experience or start to get involved in research. We've got some really cool research locations in Germany over the summer that are very popular with students. So those are kind of the experiences students can look for. I know there's some questions have been coming in. Nope, we don't need a visa for a summer study abroad program. Generally, the rule is anything under 90 days does not require a specific student visa. You technically do get a visa when you arrive, even for those short programs. And that's what you're there under, but it's not a pre-applied student visa. Is there a transfer credit process for Arizona Abroad? Yes. For Arizona Abroad and exchange program, it's all based on transfer credit. Yep. And so it's all worked out in advance with their academic advisor. I'm going to take these classes. This is how they're going to fulfill my degree requirements. And if a student has maxed out their allowable internship credit for the major, can they do it? To get it to count, that has to come from the academic department. I like to say for a lot of these things, the study abroad office is fairly agnostic. Like we will accept any student that wants to go on study abroad. Even if they wanted to do an internship, they weren't going to get any usable credit for it. That's fine by study abroad office. It's really more the student and then their academic department as to whether it makes sense to do that or whether the student has time or just wants to do that. And we help students kind of understand what that means if they're in that situation. In terms of academic and campus services, when students are starting to plan for their academics, as I said at the beginning, we're open to all majors and minors. Again, we will never say, hey, if you're this major, you can or can't go on that program. That's going to be more based on the kinds of credits that program offers and what your student needs to get to graduation on time. So like I mentioned, the Galapagos trip, this is very popular with our environmental studies students, our environmental science students, students that want to go into island biodiversity, students that want to do conservation. The credit works really well for those students, but other students could absolutely apply to these types of programs, just understanding that credit may not fulfill a specific degree requirement for them. So the thing that I really recommend your students do as they start to plan this is to understand their degree plan. They can review their own advisement report in UAccess. Any student can do this. If they log into their student account, they can pull their advisement report. They probably looked over this with their academic advisors if they've met with them. If they haven't, I recommend that they do. One, just for degree planning purposes, but then two, to really figure out where study abroad fits well in their 4-year plan. Like I said at the beginning, you have to at least be a sophomore before you can go. And most students go out in their sophomore or junior year, but it's really the academic advisors that help students figure out which of those years and which semester is going to work best. Um, for example, we see a lot of our business students out of Eller um, choosing to go out in second semester junior year because by then they're already in their professional program. They've got 1 semester under their belt and they're ready to go on study abroad. But this will vary based on, different academic needs. I kind of talked a little bit about our peer advisors. Definitely come talk with us. We will help with the initial interest in advising before students apply to their program. And then once they do, then their study abroad coordinator will help them from that point forward. Other offices that we always recommend students connect with, the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships, they actually have, I'm going to talk more about financial aid stuff, but I'll drop this link here since I'm talking about it. They have a really good website I put in the chat that talks about how to use financial aid on study abroad. And every student's financial aid package is going to be unique and individual to that student. So we recommend they talk to them. What we will help do is answer some of the questions they might get. So if they talk to financial aid might ask them, okay, what kind of program is it? Where's the tuition being charged? These kinds of things. And so they can come talk to us and we will help them either prepare for their meeting with financial aid or to kind of help fill in those gaps after they've talked to financial aid. If your student is working with the Disability Resource Center, we also work with them on study abroad. When your student opens their study abroad application, they will disclose if they have any disability resources that they may need while they're overseas so that we can connect them with the DRC to start to talk about what that looks like, both the services we can offer to them overseas and then start to work with their study abroad coordinators and connect with our partners on the ground over there to understand what's available at the partner school. If students are military connected, either the themselves military members or the children of military members, there's a really good office here on campus, Military Connected Benefits. They can talk to about using military aid on study abroad. I will say that students trying to use military aid definitely face a few challenges. The requirements for the funding are very specific, and we will help students kind of understand which programs will fit those needs. But it's good for those students to connect with them with the military connected benefits first to understand and get that checklist of what a study abroad program would need to offer in order for those benefits to pay for it. And then another big partner is Campus Health as well. We encourage students to talk to Campus Health. In fact, part of their application process is having a travel health appointment with them to understand, all the health implications of traveling overseas to their chosen destinations. Students can do this with their own primary care doctors as well. They just need to provide proof of that. So we all here at the U of A fully support study abroad, and there are a lot of ways in which we can help your students figure out everything that they need to get in line before they go. Okay, let's get to the big stuff, financing study abroad. And really, again, this is probably the theme of today's presentation is you've got to be planning ahead. And so I'm really glad to see so many of you here because I know you will be helping your students get going on this. But finding additional resources, additional funding for study abroad takes time. A lot of these big study abroad scholarships that are out there are open much earlier sometimes than even the application for study abroad itself is. For example, on the screen here, I'm recommending, to look the Gilman and the Fund for Education Abroad. Students can be applying almost a year to maybe even a year and a half, depending on the timing, for these scholarships ahead of going on study abroad. So a lot of times, at least in our experience, what we see is they don't have to prove acceptance up front, but they do need to know what program they're going on because they have to write an essay and speak authoritatively about, what it is they plan to do and why they're seeking the funding. But this, again, are things that our team is here to help talk with them about. And we know, students have just arrived at university. This is probably the first time. I know it was for me, where they're kind of in charge of their finances, and we are here to help empower students kind of take control of that. And I personally find study abroad to be one of the best first and largest opportunities to practice some of those newly gained skills they got from, leaving home and just coming here to U of A. Um, so they've kind of started, and now here we can do study abroad where we incorporate, time zone changes, currency changes, and travel into the budgeting process. But there are a lot of great resources. We have great resources on our website for finding scholarships. We have a budget guide to start to help students plan their budget for study abroad. We've got a scholarship guide as well. All of this is on our website. When it comes to the general expenses of study abroad, this I know there's a lot of language on the slide here. I apologize for that, but I want to make sure you all were able to see what it is that's going to be coming up. But your basic categories are your tuition and fees, your travel and living expenses, or I sometimes call them cost of living expenses, and then additional spending. For the tuition and fees, these are the things that we will be charging to your student's Bursar account. So they will look like other charges that they're probably paying for things on campus, their tuition, housing, a meal plan, cap prints or whatever. And the things that we will be charging there are the tuition and program fees, whatever those are for that program, their international health insurance costs. The study abroad application fee used to, now students pay by credit card. But if students don't have a credit card or having issues with it, we could post that $50 fee to the Bursars account. Now, one thing to note, when it comes to the tuition piece, we are charging their semester tuition. So that's how it triggers all their aid to apply that they might already have. But for faculty-led programs, they only some of those financial aid options will apply. A lot of those faculty-led programs happen in the summer, and the merit scholarships don't apply in the summer anyway. But some of our Arizona abroad locations offer summer options as well. So it gets a little tricky with that, but overall, the picture is we're charging U of A tuition. We do this in the summer as well. It's just kind of a lump sum. For any of you that are out of state, I will say it's everybody pays in-state tuition over the summer, or it's the same tuition rate, which can be hugely beneficial to some students for their financial planning. Now your out-of-pocket costs, things that we're not going to charge to the student account, is your cost of living, housing, meals, travel is kind of how I do it. They'll probably need books and supplies when they're over there. The students book their own flights. We don't purchase airplane tickets, which I always say is good because if we were doing it, there'd be a bunch of service fees attached to it. It'd be a lot more expensive. The thing that comes up with flights a lot that we deal with, is the anxiety of getting a good costing plane ticket, balanced against knowing that they are locked into their study abroad program. So, for example, I know that our study abroad coordinators are starting to get a lot of questions about, can I book my plane ticket because our summer programs have closed their applications and they're starting to get ready. Our official advice always is wait until you have received confirmation from your study abroad coordinator to book your plane ticket. But my personal advice is that if you are eager to get this done because you want a good price, I certainly understand that. We are always recommending getting travel insurance or cancel insurance on those tickets. just in case something comes up. Now, I know that that adds an extra cost usually when you're booking those plane tickets, but with international air travel being what it is, things come up all the time, and I think you will find this to be very beneficial to have the travel insurance. And I'll note when I say travel insurance, I do not mean health insurance. Travel insurance generally covers things like canceled tickets or canceled flights, delays, lost luggage, stuff like this. Some notes there. I do have the housing listed in the out of pocket, but there are some programs where we actually charge the housing costs to the Bursars account. And on any program page, there's a budget sheet specific to that program. It makes very clear, line item by line item, what is charged to the student account and what the student is expected to pay out of pocket. Um, so I will say though, most of our a lot of our more popular programs, the housing is being charged to the Bursars account, but again, it varies. So I went ahead and put it under the out of pocket because that's where I thought it fit best. And then for the food, again, primarily out of pocket, but some programs will have, especially those faculty-led group trips in the summer, will have um, a couple of group meals that's included in the program cost. Or if students sign up for a homestay option where they're living with a local family, that generally also includes some meals as well. Can be a great way to save some money and get some good home cooked meals while they're overseas. So some variability there. Some other things that students will want to think about as they plan their budget. You know, what activities do they want to get into? Just like being at school at U of A, their free time is their own, and they can travel outside of the program itself. This is why Europe is such a huge destination for students. Um, but that's all going to be out of pocket optional cost for them. And I will say, what I recommend to students, what I am always encouraging them to do is spend more money on the independent activities and extra travel than on souvenirs and gift. Buy experiences, not things. That is always my motto. Um, Great question here. Do you get the individual cost breakdown for the program once you're accepted? You would get a much more specific one, but right now you could go on our catalog, our study abroad catalog, look at any program, and it will have a budget sheet attached to that program. So you could see what that is today. Um, Quickly, just to talk about, I was talking about financial aid. If you look on the financial aid website I shared in the chat, your student may have merit scholarships, may have grants and loans at the undergraduate level. At the graduate level, we tend to see just the loans and departmental awards. For these types of financial aid, they will apply primarily on those semester programs. Some of those grants and loans can carry into the summer. It just depends on the student's specific financial aid package. For summer, what we tend to see is those grants and loans. Again, those merit scholarships drop off. Departmental awards, so scholarships coming out of their academic departments. There are two big national scholarships that we always recommend students look into. If your student is a Pell Grant recipient, we highly recommend looking at the Gilman Scholarship because this can be a couple $1,000s to support their study abroad journey. I put the link for that in the chat, so definitely check that out. And then another one is Fund for Education Abroad, which is open to any U.S. citizen to apply to. It doesn't have that same Pell Grant requirement that the Gilman does. And so these are two big national ones. There's a ton of money out there for study abroad, and it really saddens me every year when I learn how much gets left on the table because students just aren't applying for it. And so some of these are big dollar, right? The two I just shared could be several thousand. Some of them are just a couple hundred, but every little bit counts. When students ask me, how much money should I save for study abroad? I always say as much as you possibly can because you don't know what you're going to run into out there. And you want to be able to say yes to everything you possibly can. Um, and so, from my personal experience, when I was in Australia, sort of last minute, had this 2 week break and and thought, oh, I should go to New Zealand. And I hadn't done what I should have done and pre-planned everything. And so, it was a little bit more expensive to be traveling last minute, but because I had followed the same advice from my study abroad advisor, I had the money set aside, and was ready to say yes to this opportunity to go to New Zealand. Um, let's see here. Question. Oh, about housing. Yeah, no. Every program comes with a housing option. Students don't need to find it on their own. They do need to apply to it on their own. That's part of their study abroad application process. And certainly we can help connect, study abroad advisors can help connect students with other students that are going. And this is pretty regularly done for all of our programs that go overseas. And so yes, we can provide connections to find housing. Um, and to some extent, yes, they're expected to find it, but we provide what those options are. And any program page in our catalog will list what the different housing options are for. Um, Pre-departure orientation. I'm going to move away from finances and scholarships and talk a little bit about what we talk to students about as they prepare for study abroad. It is mandatory. Every student has to go through this, and we cover a lot of things to prepare them for being overseas. And their study abroad advisor will work with them to get them into the PDO. It's an online platform. And then most individual programs will also set up, especially those summer ones, will set up time to meet and talk about things ahead of time. So there's a lot of opportunities for students to kind of prepare once they've been accepted into their program for their specific travels. Let's see. Oh, I see. Yeah, another housing question. Honestly, if it's off-campus housing, we have very little to do with that. And if they're on-campus housing, study abroad is the one of two official reasons you can break a full year lease in on-campus housing. And if your student goes in a fall program, then they can apply for just spring on-campus housing. But if they are off campus, I can tell you this is a thing that a lot of students deal with, but every single one of them overcomes it. Our understanding is this is primarily happening through personal connections or social media. Um, to especially for students living off campus, needing to find subleases or things like that, or just find like 6-month leases, things like this. Um, if study abroad advisors are hearing from students on their way back, then they can connect them with students who are on their way out. That happens all the time. We don't have any sort of official process for this. It's mostly students working with their study abroad advisors just to say, hey, look, I'm looking for housing when I get back. Is anybody coming? And then, connecting those two. So that's kind of where we're at. We're very limited in what we can do when it comes to off-campus housing, but we will try and connect students with others who are, kind of looking for the same thing. When it comes to the pre-departure, one of the huge aspects of that is the health and safety. So preparing your students to be healthy and to be safe while they are overseas. Um, I've got this great quote here from the director of our global travel team. This team is responsible for keeping an eye on things while students are overseas. So they are keeping an eye on events going on around the globe, connecting with our partners and connecting with students if anything is happening on the ground that they need to be aware of. And should anything major happen, then they are working with study abroad advisor, with your student, with our partners on the ground, um, to make sure that students are aware of what's going on and are getting connected with the right resources. We also strongly encourage students to enroll in the State Department STEP program, where they are registering their travel with the embassy on the ground there. And so we are keeping an eye on students the entire time they are out on study abroad. And one of the big aspects of pre-departure is, making students aware of what's available to them and really showing them how to, look at some of this stuff for themselves, right? When I talk to students, I always say, do you know where the nearest US embassy is to the city you're going to be leaving? And the internet makes this really easy to answer. They can find this out before they ever get there. Um, but but knowing it on the map on Google Maps is one thing, but getting there is another thing. So when I went on study abroad, there wasn't an embassy, but a consulate office. Um, I just went there. I didn't go in. I didn't have a meeting. I didn't have any point to be there, but I just took, public transportation, just to map out where it was so I could see the building, knew where it was, and knew how long it would take me to get there, under regular circumstances. And so these are the kinds of things that we'll be talking with students about. Um, let's see. I see we've got some winter pre-part. Yes, they are not on Zoom. It is through D2L, is our online learning platform. So it's a self-paced pre-departure orientation, and your student will be enrolled in it by their study abroad advisor, when they get to that point in their application process. Um, Yes, and yes, we do a lot of connecting students with other students going to the same location before they go. Most every program I know of sets up WhatsApp groups. The students themselves do this. The study abroad advisors do this. We have in-person events here, at the Global Center where we connect students with other students going on study abroad in general, and then also with students going specifically on their program, their same program. Okay, I'm gonna move here a little quickly. I know there's some questions coming in, but I want to make sure I get through all that I have for you all today. Um, yeah. So some of the practical advice, I gathered this up from our team here, both our peer advisors, so students who have gone on study abroad recently, and then our staff. We're all pretty well traveled. Um, these are the kinds of things that we can help students think about. But these are also things if you yourself have travel experience to be talking with your student about. If you don't have travel experience, that's okay too. We work with students who are first time, family member travelers all the time, and this is the kind of experience that our team can pass on to your students. And what you will see here is really, less is more. When you look at these tips, less is more. As I said before, experiences over things, um, and being flexible, right? Being flexible is one of the biggest things that students can go, and also to you as well. I know it's scary, it's nerve wracking. It's a little bit wild to send your student out into the world like this, and so being flexible is one of the big things there. Packing tips. This is one of the big parts in the pre-departure orientation. Again, less is more, right? We're not there to live with our stuff. We're there to live some experiences. And so, take less, have more fun. Medications, this is a big one. That's why I included this slide here, from our peer advisor, Sarah. This is something to be talking with your study abroad advisor early about if you have specific medications you need to be taking, to really understand what your host country's view on those things are, what they require, what kind of documentations you're going to need, things like this. Let's see. Here's some more departure tips. Oh yeah, money comes up a lot. We talk about money in pre-departure orientation. The nice thing nowadays is, global or online banking is very common. It makes it very easy to travel. The big thing is really just making sure that students have access to funds in multiple forms. When I traveled overseas, I always, I had a credit. It was the first time I got a credit card. I had my debit card, and I had cash, or well, technically I had traveler's checks, which are a little antiquated these days. But then the other thing is I opened a local bank account. Now in Australia, this was very easy to do. It may not be easy where your student's going, so it won't work for everybody. But it was a cool thing to do where I felt like I was a local, and it helped me avoid a lot of these international transaction fees. Um, and then also too, when students are traveling, just to get some money ahead of time. A lot of the big national banks, you can order uh, foreign currency. I know Wells Fargo does this. I've gotten euros, pesos, um, and that way you have some cash on hand, and you're not getting it at the airport through one of the money changers because that's always really expensive, or you're not trying to pull it out of an ATM late at night while you're jet lagged and still getting used to the country. Yeah. Uh, yes. How much money should you keep in your, sorry, do I have a typo? I think you should have money in both, honestly, because you never know what's going to happen. Is the typo pack cash in your checked luggage? I did this. I know it's not the major recommendation is to keep your money on you, but I did put a little bit in my check bag just in case I lost my carry-on, which does seem counterintuitive, but yes. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, and then I think this is one of my last slides. I just wanted to show kind of what we really recommend you as parents do, and where you can really help your students the best. Again, just understanding we're covered by FERPA, so we cannot divulge things about your student's record or even about their study abroad program that isn't public information on our website. Now, students can fill out FERPA waivers. That's perfectly fine. And we love talking to parents. I talk to parents all the time. But just be aware that there are some legalities we have to consider. Um, and really, just kind of setting those expectations. I think a lot of what ends up happening when students are overseas is the communicating thing. Luckily, we live in an era when communication is actually relatively easy. Um, and so, hopefully they have multiple ways to get in touch with you. But let them know what you're thinking when it comes to this. Yeah. Navigating culture shock. I know I'm running out of time. I want to make sure I get to all the questions here. Um, this is something we'll talk about in pre-departure orientation with your students. But just understand that your student is going to go through this. And it's going to be small, it's going to be big, but it's going to happen. It's pretty, to me, it's a guarantee that a student's going to go through culture shock. And so there's a lot of ways that we can help prepare students. There's a lot of ways you can help prepare students as well. If you want to see any of the stuff, any of the information I've covered today, this is all on our website, studyabroad.arizona.edu. You can go on there today. We've got really great resources for students. We've got resources for you as parents. I'll put the link to our parent page in the chat right now. We do drop in, tell your student they can come see us 2 to 5, Monday through Friday, no appointment needed, or they can go on our website and book an appointment with us. If you have questions, you can email us, studyabroad at arizona.edu. Okay, so that ends my formal presentation. I'll leave this slide up for a second, so if you want to grab that contact info. But let me make sure I've been catching all the questions here. Okay, yes, our son is accepted to Summer Barcelona, so they just fly there on their own or try and go in a group. It's up to them. It's up to you. There will definitely be other students going at the same time. They can connect with those students and plan their travel if they want. There's no requirement that they do that. They can fly there. They will be given information about when they need to be in class and when they can move into their housing. Other than that, they're kind of on their own for their travel. Do you advise how to register with the State Department? Yes, it's really easy. You just go on the State Department website and register. But our study abroad advisors can help students with that. Where can you find the default info on what is included in the health insurance? That comes once they're enrolled in it. So they get enrolled in the Geo Blue plan. I can tell you it's a very comprehensive plan, but then they get the huge policy document when when they get enrolled in that program. If your student would like that, or if you would like that information earlier, just have them reach out to their study abroad advisor. Okay, let's see. Do they fly home the last day of the program or the day following? Asking wrong what I say. Yeah. Uh, they're essentially two different questions. They can fly home whenever they want. Usually housing ends the last day of the program or the day after the program ends. A lot of times it's kind of considered move out day is considered the last day of the program. They don't have to fly home, but they've got to move out. This is one of the reasons why students like to do Europe in springtime for the spring semester, because then they can hang around over the summer and do some more traveling. Yeah. Oh, good. Yep, Kristen, we run into this all the time. Kids not talking to parents. Yeah, we feel you. They're not checking their email, so that's our frustration on our end. But we are here to help, and please do feel free to reach out. Just understanding we may be limited in what we can share depending on where your student is at in their process. Um, and where's the page that they apply? It's online, studyabroad.arizona.edu. They go to the program that they want to participate in, and there's a big apply now button. Um, and right now we don't have, like I said, a lot of programs open. We're kind of in between. Our spring 2026 cycle will open July 1st. Our summer 2026 cycle will open October 1st. And our fall 2026 cycle will open December 1st. Yeah. No, it is. If they go, if summer they go and no visa needed, they can stay and travel a bit more as long as it's under 90 days. Yeah, yes, to a certain extent, Heather, yes, that is true. If they're going for a summer program, they don't need a student visa as long as they haven't used up those 90 days. It kind of depends on where they're going. If they're within the European Union, like they would have to leave the union and come back in to reset that 90 days. That's usually not a tough thing to do. These days, you could just travel to London and then go back into the European Union, and it resets those 90 days. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. And I know we're at our time. It's 5:30. I want to thank you all for being here. I'll hang around for a few more minutes if you have more questions. I know there was a lot of information presented, so feel free to keep asking questions for another 5 minutes. I can hang around, and I'll make sure I get this recording up on YouTube, and you can find it there. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining my info session today. I hope this was helpful to you. Oh, Melissa, we are struggling to get a student visa. Can they leave the country and return to avoid student visa? No, if I would not recommend that route. If they are required to get a student visa, what you are suggesting could be very likely considered visa fraud. And so I would not I would never recommend that. And what I would really recommend is continuing to work with the study abroad advisor um, on that, and just understanding that it's a little bit out of our hands since getting that visa is coming from the host country and not from the university or even from the U.S. government. Um, oh, Lauren, our YouTube page, if you go to our website, we have links to all of our socials, and we have a link at the bottom to our YouTube page on our website. I've been trying for 2 months. Okay. Melissa, again, I'd really recommend, and I'm sure that you have, to continue to work with your study abroad advisor for Italy. My guess is that's either Sam or Daphne on our team. Um, can I get dates for the Australian Sydney spring trip? Yeah, the dates for the program are on the program page for that. I know in Australia, since I went there, they tend to start a little later, I think mid-February, and so the program will push out into sometime probably into June. And yeah, going to Australia, you will need a student visa, but the Australian student visa process is pretty straightforward. You shouldn't run into some of the issues that it sounds like Melissa is running into with Italy. Passport should be current to 6 months of expiration just in case. Yes, Heather, thank you. That's a great point. Yeah, it should be valid 6 months after the student is going to get back from their program. That's what most countries are looking for when they look at a passport. So if a student is going to go out in a spring semester, that passport should be valid all the way through to, into the fall of that year. Lauren, I don't have any plans to offer this, but since you have asked, and since we had such a good turnout today, I think I will offer another info session next month. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll do another one of these. And I think what I'll probably do is encourage our study abroad advisors to come join me for one that is more specific to students who are preparing to go overseas. Um, but feel free to reach out to us by email, by phone, or have your student book an appointment with us, or you can book an appointment with us if you want to kind of talk one-on-one. Okay, any last questions from the group? Oh, when should your students start the process for junior year if they're a freshman? Today. There's no such thing as too early of planning. I would say, Lauren, for your student to come talk to us, come to our drop-in hours, 2 to 5, Monday through Friday at the Global Center, book an appointment with us, be talking to their academic advisor. Because even if they're not going to go out to their junior year, it may have an impact on the classes they take in their sophomore year here. And so they want to start planning that with their academic advisor. Um, so I would say start the process today. If they haven't already talked with us, have them come talk to us, and that'll be a good starting point. And then they'll start applying, like I said at the beginning, about a year, or I'm sorry, about a semester and a half before they go. Okay. Any last questions? All right. Well, thank you all so much again for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope this was helpful. I know this was really just kind of scratching the surface of what study abroad can be for your student. So please reach out to us if you have more questions. Um, send your student to come talk with us. Um, and yeah, send them to talk to us first, Lauren. Come talk to us. They can talk to their advisor first if they want, but they can come talk to us first. We'll give them everything that they need to know. Um, but with that, I'm going to call it good for today. I hope you all have great evenings, and thank you for supporting your students' journey on study abroad.